much for taking the time to do this. It is a pleasure to speak with you. How are you right now?
Um, First of all, thank you. Likewise. Yeah, appreciate it. I'm good. I'm super good. I just got back from the south parts of Sweden. We played Sweden Rock a couple of days back. 35,000 in the audience. Crazy bananas. So yeah, I kind of trying to absorb it at the moment. But yeah, great, great. Thank you for asking.
Still riding that high. How was that show? A good fun, yeah?
Yeah, it was. It was like now it's we played that once before, like a couple of years back, but at a smaller stage. This time it was main stage, and it's kind of a bittersweet experience. Mainly sweet, but there's a lot of pressure getting the chance to play the festival stage. You need to be able to actually be kind of a headline band to do that, and so that's I guess the expectations were quite high, but I think I think we managed. It was a great show, I have to say. Yeah.
Do you like playing festivals overall?
Yeah, definitely. Uh, yeah, I do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love festival season. We're hitting it right now in the UK as well. This week, well, this is Download Week. Download
Yeah,
Festival takes place at the end of this week. So we're right in that festival period, and it's uh
nice.
it's always exciting.
No, but I love it. It's like, of course, total opposite of doing a club tour or whatever. But the festival feeling, as you say, like normally quite nice weather. Drinking beer in like plastic glasses and all that. You've done that since I at least was a teenager. So it's a lot of nostalgia, and I love it. I love it.
Yeah, same here. I don't want to jinx it right now, but out the window where I am here, it's currently raining because it's the
Ah,
UK and it's a festival. Naturally, it's raining.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool.
Of course, great time as well because your new album, Teenage Rebel, we're almost at the 2 week point of it being out. Are you pleased? It's still early days, but are you pleased with the reaction to it so far?
Yes, definitely. The reactions and the reviews so far have been just amazing. Kind of hard to take in, to be honest. So I'm super pleased, and we managed to enter the sale charts, the official sale charts, album charts in Germany this Friday, place number 12. I saw that Billie Eilish was number 8. So it feels yeah above our expectations, I have to say.
Yeah, folks out there are loving it. And across the world too. I think that's really important. It's not localized, just stay specifically to your country or Europe in general. What is it, do you think, about the album that is so appealing to so many different people?
Ooh, I guess as we representing a music genre that kind of has it heydays. Do you say heydays? Like the big, grand
Know what you mean? Yeah.
back in the 80s. Yeah, there's a lot of people kind of getting back, people in their mid 40s to 50s almost kind of remember these days. And our album is some kind of nostalgia retrospective thing that makes them feel young again. And I guess that doesn't really apply to any country. It's like a general feeling. If you grew up in the 80s, okay, I guess our album kind of reminds you of those days. And yeah, I think that's the reason.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Obviously, it has that nostalgic tinge, but I think it's really interesting that it's not like localized to a specific age group, for example, that is the album is resonating with. There are people much younger who weren't even alive in the heyday, as you say, of that particular music that are also bang into it, which is a great thing.
Yeah, yeah, we love it. And on that, on that, what do you say, on that side, on that mark or whatever, it's like we just sold out. We have a kind of a collection of merchandise which is more like based on teenagers and kids, and it's sold out. So I guess we see a lot of these youngsters sitting on their daddy's shoulders or whatever at our concerts, which is of course beautiful and wonderful.
It is, it really is. But take me back, I guess, to the earliest point of the album creation, specifically a vision. When you set out to make this record, did you have a clear idea of what you wanted to do?
Well, no, I didn't. Not at first, but then for some reason, going back, I live in Spain nowadays, so I was taking some flight from Stockholm back here, and and I read this article in a newspaper, not a newspaper, magazine on the plane, and it was about this physiological kind of diagnosis they call like the Peter Pan syndrome, where men refuses to grow up. So I read this article and I thought that maybe this album is about that, us looking in retrospect, having that kind of becoming teenagers, but also just there's one song on the album called Teenage Rebel, which is about tell me I'm wrong, it's only my mind. These days are not gone because we're back where we started from. So that when I got the idea of this album is going to be about that, we decide we can refuse to grow up, we can be responsible, but we can refuse to grow up. Then I had a kind of a clear goal for the album. So after that, it was, I shouldn't say easy, but then I had at least something to fall back on, so to speak.
You've effectively got the foundations in place.
Yeah.
Now it's building it. You reading that article about Peter Pan syndrome, I'm very familiar with it. Did it personally resonate? Do you think you kind of maybe suffer from that?
Yeah, definitely. Not, I have to say, not in the bad ways. I got children and a normal kind of life and taking being responsible and all that, but the idea of not limiting yourself, just try to, when I write songs, this album in particular and the first one as well, it's like I just try to think about how it was. Maybe I'm glorifying a little bit, but still it's like how I remembered it when you were like 16, 17, 18 years old and the world was at your feet and you just knew that tomorrow's, it's like so far away, just do whatever we do now. And this ideas of becoming a rock star, and when that didn't turn out, you okay, then I'll do this instead and this instead. And yeah, in that sense, yeah, I kind of like the idea of the Peter Pan syndrome, that you stay in the here and now, and also that you allow yourself to feel those feelings that you actually were, that we felt when we grew up and were teenagers.
I think that really resonates with a lot of people. It does with me. I'm about 2 months short of turning 40, and I'm generally not sure what a 40-year-old is supposed to do anymore, So
Yeah.
it definitely resonates.
Huh.
Comparing this to the first album, Kids in a Ghost Town, how did the creative process differ to that album?
The biggest difference is very boring in that sense, that it was a pandemic going on when we did the first album, so there was a lot of file swapping. I was sitting here in Spain at that time making demos, sending it to the guys, and they just did their recordings and sent it back, and I kind of used that. This time around we started off in the same kind of way that I did the demos, and when I had an idea I sent it over to the guys and they worked with it at home, and then when we felt like we get in there, I brought them down here. So we did all the recordings actually where I'm sitting right now in my studio at home in Spain. So that was the biggest difference. Instead of, and also the first album, there was I played a lot of keyboards, some guitars, and I did a lot of that stuff just because we didn't have the chance to do it properly that time around. So this time around, it's been more of an old way of recording stuff. We did the drums in Sweden, but apart from that, we did everything here together.
Better, right, though?
Yeah, much better, much better. I don't know. Of course, the outcome, you never know about that, but still the feeling, being a band, that's the whole thing about Nestor, that we're really, as we've been doing this since late 80s, even though we had a long pause of 30 years, but still, it's like the whole thing about being a band, being the same, these guys in a studio trying different stuff out, like that was great, that wasn't great. And instead of like pushing those decisions to the mix, kind of decide in the recording, this is a great take, let's leave it like that. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, obviously, when Kids in a Ghost Town, was being made, when it came out, it was the pandemic. It's not like you had much of a choice but to do it that way. It was a bit of a mess. Were you actively conscious of delivering a follow-up that wasn't just Kids in a Ghost Town Part 2, but also kind of kept what makes Nestor so much fun to listen to?
Well, I don't know if I got the question right, but if the question is that if I felt, did you say if I felt like that I needed to deliver an album that was a little bit like, or what was the question? Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, did you feel that it was important to not just do Kids in the Ghost Town Part 2 with
Yeah.
this new album, but you also knew that you kind of have to keep what makes Nestor fun at the
Yeah.
forefront of the music.
Yeah, definitely. I knew, first of all, for me it was super important, and for the rest of the guys as well, to not disappoint our fans, because I've been, and I guess you have as well, or anyone who's been like in love with a band has experienced that quite a few times, where you kind of fall in love with an album and you're just waiting in anticipation for the next album, and then they just took a right or a left turn, and there's something different. That So I was very keen on not disappointing the fans, but also wanted to take this kind of genre. Or let me put it this way: when we wrote Kids in a Ghost Town, I had like 4 or 5 bands that was the inspiration for that album. On this album, I was going deeper into all kinds of music in the 80s, like Foreigner, Journey, not just Kiss, Bon Jovi, and Van Halen. It was like even Chicago, even Toto.
Mm.
But I felt like, and also it was a tricky part, because I knew on the first album there was a lot of influences by the new wave of British heavy metal, that kind of vibe. And I felt that if we make another album, of course we want to keep that vibe in some songs, but still we have to make expand this kind of universe a little bit. So yeah, it was what do you call it in English, like a knife's edge to walk on a little bit. It's like you want to be on, you want to be on the right side, but you don't want to be boring, and still want to, you don't want to lose your fans, but you still want to gain some new ones. And a tricky one, but so far so good, I guess.
Yeah, it is a balancing act.
Yeah.
And I think you've nailed it. So well done on that. What stage, as you're working through this album, you're putting tracks together, your creative forces are at work. At what stage did you realize, okay, we now have the workings of a full album here?
I think quite early. I have to say, quite early. I started writing this album, work on it. We started, but as I'm the main writer and producing the album as well, I say I. But I think somewhere around New Year's 2022, 2023, 1 year before it was ready, I knew that I had like these kind of embryos of songs that I felt like, okay, this suits this part. I'm very cynical in that sense. When I write an album, I want to do it like they did back in the day. I remember I saw this interview with Paul Stanley when he was putting the songs on Crazy Nights together, and he was like, I could see that he matched those. There was like these red lines in between songs. So this song goes with this one, and this one goes with this one, and that should be the starter of the second, side two, because it has the same feeling as the start on the same. And the big ballad should be, and I kind of, okay, that's how I think when I write an album. And by somewhere around that, I got, I had the first We Come Alive. I knew that that was the starter of the album. I also had like this idea of The Daughter, which would be the closer on the album. And then I thought that, okay, with the mid tempo, Addicted to Your Love I had that early as well. 124 BPM, the hit tempo. Okay, that one is done. So I kind of, even though it was just embryo, and sometimes you start working on something and you realize that this is not good and you just throw it in the bin. But at that point, I think early January 2023, I felt like, okay, I think I got those 7, 8, 9, 10 songs that I think would be suitable for an album. So, yeah.
Is it fair to say overall the process was quite smooth? As you describe it, it does sound like it was a fairly smooth process.
Yeah, I guess if you would have asked me like 6 months ago, I would say like, this is the fucking, I will never do it again. But now it feels like, looking back, I know that it's been a year where I've been quite stressed out because of the fact that with the Kids in the Ghost Town was a totally different story, because no one expected nothing. It was like I could spend another 3 years making this album and no one would care. And even we didn't even say that it was going to be an album. It was like, let's do a couple of songs and see where it takes us. But this time around, it was like, the label, and we also have fans, and we also have, a publisher, management, and everyone was like, yeah, this is the deadline. If we don't have it ready by then, we have to wait another 8 months, because there's these releases and this and that. And if you want to tour next summer, you have to get it out by this and that. So answering your question, looking back now, I guess it's like when you go through rough times, afterwards you kind of, yeah, was it that hard? Yeah, but you lost both your legs, you know. Yeah, but I got a wheelchair that works fine nowadays. It's kind of no comparison though, but still, it's like now it feels like it was quite smooth. But at that, you know, I remember I said to my wife, because the studio is in a basement, and there was a time like in October, November last year where I felt I got, this what do you call it, angst? What do you say in English?
Mm.
Anxious? Yeah, just by walking down the stairs, I was like, I don't want to go in there. It's like, can I do if I have meetings, I'll do them in somewhere else, because I don't want to be here. Because all of a sudden it was like, work it out, make sure that the vocals are there, make sure that this and that. So yeah, in general,
Did you,
smooth ride, but yeah.
speaking about that specifically, your feelings of anxiety there, did you just kind of force yourself to push on?
Yeah, I don't have the luxury of like waiting for some kind of emotional feeling. It's just 9 o'clock. Let's go down to the studio and get cranking.
I'm glad you're able to reflect on it positively. I feel like that's a human mind condition. It's pain, isn't it? You know, you go through an extreme amount of pain at some point, 6 months further down the line,
Mm.
it never feels as bad as it did.
No.
It's funny that. What was one of the more complex tracks to create? I can't help but think it might have been, say, something like Caroline or Daughter.
I spot on both. Was those two tracks were the toughest one. Daughter, for like obvious reasons. I wrote that song for my daughter, and you know, just choosing the words. Can I sing this? Can I? Is that okay or not okay? But is this what I wanted to give to her? This, can I say that? Can I? So that was tough on that one. Also, I got very emotional every time I was starting singing it, and for some reason, I always sang that. You know, lay down the vocals when I was a bit hangover. I don't know, maybe because I felt like, yeah, but I'm hangover. I don't have any pressure today. I can just go in and do some demo vocals. And in the end, this vocals ended up on the album. But so that one was tough out of those reasons. Caroline was tough in a different way, because I was like, I tried every female name there is. Madeline, you know, Josephine. I've tried everything, and at one point I was all into Coraline, which is like this old movie. The song is a little bit flirting with that kind of, if you know the movie, with the
Mm.
girl that kind of walks through the store and it's up in a different universe. So that was tough out of that perspective, and also, yeah, it was a song that sometimes writing a song, it could be like, okay, I got the verse, I know the bridge part, the mid eight is like this, the chorus is like this, that would should be a solo, maybe different key, but then we're coming back to this, and that's the end of it. Then, but with Caroline, I changed that form so many times, and the outro was like a different song first. Dance with your shadow under street light. That was a different song, and it was that song was all over the place for a long, long time.
They both turned out so phenomenally well, though.
Oh, thank you, thank you. No, I guess that you know, talking about Nestor, and now we haven't even touched that, but I get a lot of questions like what differs, when it comes to Nestor and other bands, and of course I can't really say, but I think the one of our biggest strengths is that we never. I realized that I never even say that one song is finished. I just abandon the songs when I feel like they are at that place where I can just abandon them, and that means that they are always, even though now I'm kind of, what do you say, when I said something early in this interview saying like, okay, now we got it, this take is done, we're done. But for Nestor's sake, I leave it as long as I can, even though I know that now we got it. But as long as I can tweak. And for example, there's a song called "Unchain My Heart," one of the
Mm.
last songs on the album. That's the mid, the bridge part, and that one was actually the chorus from the beginning, and the chorus was the bridge. But then at one point, I wrote this song with a friend of mine. His name is Fredrik Tomander, and he just said like, there's something about this bridge that kind of lifts you up. Sorry, this chorus that should lift you up before this part. So he kind of made a really, a dummy, like click, chuk, chuk, and it was like, yeah. And that was 2 days before mixing. Luckily I had all the files from the drumming, and that was the same tempo, so I have to, just kind of,
Literally.
yeah. So, and that happens, I guess. But on the other hand, some songs are like, for example, the first song, "We Come Alive," it was like, this is it, this is it, this is it, done. Yeah.
Something that's as simple as that. And I have to ask, how much of the live side of things influenced you writing on this record? Because so many of the tracks sound like they belong on a stage. And something like Victorious, for example, I can see that becoming one of your all-time fan favorites in the live environment going forward.
Yeah, of course it had a lot of input on this album. The first one, as we, never played loud, never, but that was a different thing. But this time around, I read this thing about Rage Against the Machine when they were trying, the Bomb Track album. What's it called? This one, the Killing in the Name of, and they were trying. I read this article about they trying it out on drunk German students for some reason. They were in the studio, invited like 30 people, play the songs in different keys and different tempos, and there was like this magic moment when all of them started down, down, and they were like, "That's the festival kind of. That's what we want." So I kind of, thinking about all the live shows. I think we did 80 live shows on Kids in a Ghost Town, and what kind of got the crowd going, and also the idea of writing a song for the fans or with the fans. A great um, album, or sorry, a great track or a great show. I should say that a great show is always a great show when the audience and the band or the artist is in the same kind of place. Or so it had a lot of input on this album. I thought a lot about it.
How have the new songs been going down?
So far, we played four of them, and as the album was released like 1.5 weeks ago, we just had one show after release. So this was the first time at Sweden Rock where we played "We Come Alive" and "Teenage Rebel," as well as "Caroline" and "Victorious." But they're amazing, I have to say. It was like all of them works great. It's more for us to realize that, for example, that both Victorious and Caroline shouldn't be too. That we shouldn't push them live. Caroline, the tempo is quite high, but still it has this kind of melancholic mid-tempo ballad vibe.
Yeah.
And for us, it's like, instead of Caroline like this, you want to really like Caroline. It should have that kind of vibe. But the audience loves it. It feels like, at least. We have to talk again, and I'll tell you more. We try them out a few
Yes.
more times.
Yes, we
Yeah.
are. We are still so early at this point. I think come back next year, and then we can really get back
Yeah.
into it. Okay, looking at the entire creative process of Teenage Rebel, when you look back, what are some of your favorite memories? Things you really enjoyed doing, things you learned, or things that pushed your abilities in a positive way?
Um, well, it's like these bits and pieces. I remember when the third song on the album, called "Last to Know," when that one was done, the demo already, sometimes you struggle a bit. You have a demo and you know that we're going to change this. Sometimes it could be like, yeah, the key is not right. We have to change the key, and which is a bit of a hassle, as you need to record everything once again, if you realize that. But with that song, when that was done, the demo was done. I remember Johnny was here and I was renovating my studio, so we did some acoustic guitar recordings in my daughter's room, or in my daughter's room.
Mm.
And after we added those guitars, small speakers, just I felt like we could release this as it is. You know, that was a very what do you call it? Like a really great feeling, because it's always like, yeah, but if we had this one, if it's going to be better. But I remember saying to him that if this song is a hit or not, we don't know anything about. But I don't think we can add anything or do anything differently that makes it a hit or not. It's a hit now, or it's not a hit now. It won't be a hit or not a hit, whatever we do with it, which is a great feeling, because then like this song has found its right kind of element or space or whatever.
It's a great feeling, isn't it, when it just hits like that.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things about the album, and it's such a unique little section, is of course the involvement of Freya Miller.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, I known Freya for quite a bit, and when I had the idea of this intro of the law of Jante, which is like a Scandinavian kind of small town mentality thing that we grew up with, which we hate, by the way. But
Oh God.
I kind of I worked with her before for some trailers for some computer game things, and I just love her voice, and I knew right away that she would be perfect. I wanted this, Kate Blanchett. You can feel it in the air, you can feel it in the ground. That kind of vibe, the Lord of the Rings. So that was quite easy. I called her up and said that I have this thing, and she said yes, let's do it.
That's phenomenal.
Oh.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Um, what does it mean to you to see Nestor achieving this success? You know, we mentioned it earlier on, and I guess just for clarity for folks who don't know, you came back into existence in 1989, and obviously we didn't get the debut album Kids in a Ghost Town until 2021. So to be achieving this success now, what does that mean to you?
Well, it's like I almost wake up every day and have to pinch my arm to just, is this really happening? But maybe I sound a bit pretentious, but the biggest thing is that I, had to get to know these guys again. We went to kindergarten together, and of course we stayed in touch throughout the years, and seen each other maybe once a year, sometimes every second year, whatever. But to get to know these guys again and realize that these are my childhood, my brothers in a way. That is the biggest achievement. I think I feel blessed to have been able to do that. I think the other guys feel that way as well.
Absolutely do. And finally, Tobias, what is it about making music with Nestor that makes you happy?
Yeah, I guess that the same answer. It's like
Yeah.
doing it with these guys. It's the most important thing. I can't imagine doing this with someone else, and so that, and of course, playing Sweden Rock, it was like there was someone saying like there was so many middle-aged men crying in the audience, and that is like we almost said, one of our management said like we have to print a T-shirt saying like Nestor make old men cry, you know, and that is of course lovely to see that we can touch them in this with this kind of nostalgic music.
That's wonderful. Oh, do that t-shirt. Do that t-shirt. I want one. I'm sure many people will as well. And you know what else people want? They want to see you live. I presume the plan now going forward for the remainder of this year in 2025 is to just be as busy as possible in the live side of things, right?
Yes, we're just getting started. Hopefully we'll come
Yes.
to the UK quite soon as well. So
Hopefully, can't wait to see you. And of course, Teenage Rebel, it is out now everywhere. Make sure you check it out if you want some lovely nostalgia rock, but also stuff that is modern and fresh and can be enjoyed in today's environment. Tobias, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I massively appreciate your time.
thank you, Carl. Thank you very much for taking the time as well.
Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to see more content like this, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It is gratefully appreciated. You can find us over at gbhbl.com, our full website where reviews, news and so much more goes up daily. We're also on all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, at GBHBL. Just search for GBHBL and you will find us out there. We also have merchandise on sale. You can access the shop via the website.